Thank you, Philip and Stacy, for that introduction, and thanks to all in attendance. Today, we're going to be looking at four main areas. I'm about to share my screen. You can just confirm when you can see it. Right. So today we're going to touch on these four areas. Number one, we're going to share with you how your score is calculated and the variables that are used to calculate your score, the behaviors that will help you to build a strong score, and conversely, those behaviors that will cause your score to be lower, a step-by-step plan in how to improve a score that is already low. And then lastly, we will also provide practical tips where you can have a strong credit history. Just briefly before we get into the credit reporting aspect, I just want to give a brief background on the company. We opened our doors in Barbados in 2019. We do have a regional footprint where Jamaica we opened in 2011, which was then followed by Guyana, and then in Barbados in 2019. Those islands that you see in the blue there, we started to onboard around 85 to 90 institutions in the Eastern Caribbean, and they are serviced by a physical office in Antigua. Our name when we launched in 2019 was Credit Advice, and in 2023, we rebranded to Every Data. Our services at the moment, people tend to think of us only as a credit bureau, but we specialize in data, of which one of the services that we're able to provide as a result of that data are credit reports and scores. However, there are other services, other value-added services that we do provide, and these are business-to-business services, but we do have, for example, market analysis, which will deal with custom reports and so on for our subscribers. And there are other alerts and other services that are utilized by those entities as well. We do have our My Every Data app, which was an app that we launched late last year, and that would give individuals the ability to see their credit report at any time that they want. The Fair Credit Reporting app currently entitles an individual to one free credit report per annum, but now with the launch of the app, you can see your credit report as many times throughout the year. That credit report that you see in the app is a free report and it would not have a score. However, you can acquire your credit report with score for a small cost of $30, but all the other information on your credit report you will be able to see. So I urge you to either during the course of the presentation or afterwards, whether you have an Android handset or an Apple handset, that you can go to a Google Play Store or the App Store and search for the My Every Data app, and you can download it and go through the registration process to have access to your credit report. So we want to go into now credit reporting 101, and I'm going to start with this particular page here because it's a very important page on your credit report. So when you walk into the credit union or bank, you apply for a loan, the institution pulls your credit report. This is one of the most important pages that will come up on the credit report. And it will say to the institution what your CIP score is here, which is your credit score. It will also have the CIP grade, which is the associated risk grade with that score. And it shows you where on this scale here, going from green through amber down to red. It will give a description of the score, and it will also show CIP is your credit information provider. That's the bank, the institutions that share information with us, and the data from those uploads are used to calculate this particular sheet here as well. It will also show you a term here called the probability of default, and this is a percentage. And this says to the institution, based on the information that has been analyzed in terms of your payment history and a series of variables, there's a 3.87% chance that this individual will default on a facility over the course of the next 12 months. It will also have an arrow alongside it, and the arrow pointing up in red would signify that the probability of default has been increasing. the arrow will either be flat, pointing to the right, which would suggest that the probability of default has been stable, or the arrow will point downward, which will signify that the probability of default has been getting lower and lower. Now, the report will also have on reason codes, and these codes say to the institution the reason why the score is what it is. So the institution can pull the report, and this will say to the institution, these are the areas here that have brought the score to 669. So they may go and look at one contract was written off in the last 24 months. They will flip to that page and take a look at that contract very closely, and you may have a series of questions that may come about because of that. It says that utilization has exceeded 95% on either credit card or line of credit in the last 6 months. You're going to flip to that page and take a look at your credit card to see what is going on. So this page in itself brings an entire summary of the individual, and a decision could very well be made by just looking at this. But this points the institution to where they need to look at to maybe ask more questions to get a better understanding of what is going on in terms of you handling your financial affairs. So we start here. What is a credit score? And having looked at that last slide, simply put, it is a numerical summary of your credit risk. It tells the individual whether you're in good standing in terms of a very low risk customer, if you're average risk, or if you're very high risk. And that credit score is used to determine the type of terms you're going to get with a loan, the limits that you may get on lines of credit or credit cards. In a non-lending environment, persons may use it to determine pricing for certain things, but overall the terms associated with whatever facility or contract you're about to enter into is determined by that score and whatever deeper investigation the institution may want to carry out on you. So the credit report uses several variables to calculate that score. And on the left, you will see here a list of those variables. And if you recall, the everyday credit score runs from 250 on the lower end to 900 on the high end, meaning the higher your score, the lower risk you are. So it uses from age, active contracts, any new contracts you've had, coming down through delinquent obligations, past due amounts, all the way down to guarantor contracts, meaning any of those contracts where you've signed as a guarantor, it will analyze those as well. So if we look over here to the right, it takes a look at those variables through these time periods. It will look at your active contracts and what's the history with them over the last 3 months. Have there been any new contracts that the individual has entered into over the last 6 months? Over the last year, have you missed any payments? It will look at even further out. It will go 24 months out and look, have there been any delinquencies or negative closures, meaning if there have been any loans that you may have had written off, if you've had any past due accounts over that period of time as well. And it will also look at sometimes, it will also look at older closures, because any closed contracts, closed and settled contracts on your credit report, they will remain there for a period of 7 years, and that is the law. So the credit report will take those into consideration as well. And then last, it will look at your age, past due threshold, that is any outstanding balances that you have added together that exceed $2,000. It will look at your credit card utilization and how high that is. It will look at loan to value, and we'll get to the definition of that term a little later on. And it will also look at the number of guarantor contracts as well. So what drives the score most? The highest impact when it comes to your credit score comes from your payment history. It monitors your missed payments, any delinquencies you have, and any negative closures. So if there are any written off contracts on your credit report, it will cause a significant reduction in your credit score. If there are any missed payments as well that turn up on your credit report, they too will reduce your score. If there are any amounts owed, especially if it goes past the $2,000 threshold, that will cause damage, and that's collectively. So you may owe a little piece on several contracts, but if they add up to more than $2,000, your credit score will feel some pain from that as well. And it will also look at how much of your limit on your line of credit or your credit card that you're currently utilizing as well. Moderate impact will also come from new credit behavior. So we advise that you don't exhibit a behavior where in January you take a small loan to deal with some stuff. Then in March, your bank sends you an envelope with pre-approved credit card and you grab at that as well. And then going into crop over, you want a crop over loan to do some other stuff and you grab at that as well. Numerous quick loans like that will also cause a slight reduction in your score as well. So one thing to note, the credit score is calculated using at least 4 months activity out of the last 6 months. So if I have a credit card, it has a balance, I'm paying it in January, February, March, and April, the system can generate a score on me. If I don't have any loans out there with anyone, I'm not paying towards any active balances at this point in time, the system will not generate a score on you. Because the system uses the score represents your behavior over a period of time and not just a one-off event. So if you rush to pay off a balance that has been outstanding for a period of time, let's say 100 days, your score will not miraculously move from 250 to 600 overnight. I just want to reiterate the name of the app. If you want to download it as we are presenting, it's My Everydata, MYEVRYDATA, and that's both for Android devices and Apple devices. And lastly, with lower impact, it also takes a look at your age. Age is not something that you can change. The impact is not as great as the other two, but it looks at age and it also looks at the shape of your portfolio, but the hit on your credit score is not significant, but it will look at the number of active contracts you have, and it will also look at the guarantor contracts. And we'll get into the importance of guarantor contracts on the next slide. So what we've put together here are 7 steps to maintaining a good score, and we'll go through them individually. Number 1, important, you must pay on time, and paying on time, also pay in full. I know that some banking apps now will have the facility where you can set auto payments. Some people like it, some people don't. But if you know the type of person where you're going to forget what date or each month you're supposed to pay your credit card, and a week later you say, oh shucks, let me pay the credit card. Those types of things, auto pay might be able to help that type of individual. And then a single 30-day late payment can also drop your score. You don't want to fall into that region. So use any tools in your apps that can help you to regularize your payments. I know things like maybe your cell bill and your internet bill tend to be fixed payments. You know, loan payments tend to be fixed, but maybe things like light and water may fluctuate, and it's hard to set a limit in there. But use those tools to your advantage to keep everything regular and tidy, that you don't have late payments when there's other stuff going on in life and you forget a date. You don't want your score to suffer from that. Number 2, keep revolving utilization low. And utilization will be referring to any lines of credit that you have or any credit cards. You don't want your credit card balance to be consistently at 90% and 95% from month to month, because then when you go to apply for a loan and the lending institution takes a look, then they're going to come to the conclusion that to some extent you are living off of your credit card. You want to be able to use your credit card, maybe when you go on vacation, when you're shopping for items online, but you also need to leave a bit of elbow room as well in the event that an unforeseen circumstance comes upon you, and you still have some medium by which you can use cash to do some things. But it is advised that you keep your utilization below 60%. However, it's even more ideal if you keep your balance on your credit card below 10%. In a perfect world, 0 would be good, but we know that you still have things to do. There are items you need to get, but where possible, keep it below 10%. Number 3, avoid crossing the $2,000 past due threshold, because this will cause your score to go downward. And as I said a little earlier, it doesn't have to be necessarily $2,000 on one contract, but collectively across several contracts, you need to make sure that you're below $2,000. So in a case where perhaps you miss a mortgage payment, mortgage is probably the largest installment that any of us will have. I would advise when something like that happens, you have a discussion with your institution or your relationship manager at your bank or your credit union so that you can get assistance, because recovering from one missed mortgage payment, let alone two, is a very difficult situation to come out of. And it's at that time I would recommend that you seek some advice and have a discussion with your institution where something can be put in place for you to recover. Number 4, as I said a little earlier, pace new credit. Have a strategy. Don't just be grabbing at offers and taking out loans willy-nilly. Look at what you have coming on the horizon in terms of your plans for yourself. So you don't want to borrow for Carnival, borrow for Kadooment, and then you still have to turn around and borrow for back to school. And then as Bajans, you know, at Christmas, we will take out a furniture suite and a new washing machine for Christmas. And the entire year, you're borrowing. And then next year, you and your husband or wife, you're looking to get a mortgage, and you're at a stage where you've taken on more debt you can handle. You're not necessarily paying everything as you should. Some things have gone past due. Your score starts to suffer. I mean, you want to make a major move now to achieve some life goal now. Your credit score is not in a position where the institution has the level of confidence that you would want to be able to move into that new chapter. So take that note to pace yourself when it comes to taking on new credit. Number 5 is probably one of the most important ones here. Guard your guarantor exposure. And guarantor alone will have 3 roles. You will either be the main debtor, the core debtor, or a guarantor. And another word for guarantor is like a godparent. If the main debtor and the core debtor can no longer pay the loan, the institution will come knocking at your door to pay it. And it's not a situation where you can say, well, oh shucks, I don't know why they can't pay. Stop calling me. It is your signature that has gone on the agreement, and you are the person that takes over the payment of that facility when they are unable to pay. So any late payments on a loan that you are the guarantor for will affect your credit report because you have a relationship to that contract. So be very careful. I know many times you will have family members, you may have a close friend who may be, looking to achieve something and they need some help. They need somebody to sign on the loan. Be very careful in terms of being a guarantor, understand what is going on in the person's life, stay in tune with the progress in terms of the balance being paid on time and in full, because to be a guarantor, it is a partnership. You are responsible for that loan and you need to pay very close attention to how it is being serviced. Number 6, monitor your reports. The Fair Credit Reporting Act is that piece of law that governs how credit reporting is to operate in Barbados. And the law says that you're entitled to one free credit report every year. So what Everydata has done, we've put together an app that allows you to have access now to your credit report whenever you want to look at it. And you can look at it as many times as you wish. The app is free, and you can look at it, as I said, as many times as you wish, and it does not affect your score. So rather than having to call our office in the past to register for your credit report, you can now open the app and take a look at it. The free credit report in the app does not have your credit score. If you want to get your credit score, there's a small fee of $30 that is required to access your score credit report. And my advice to you is at least twice a year, request your credit report with score so that you can have an idea, stay in tune with what your credit score is. And secondly, from time to time, you may identify an error, or an error may be made at an institution as it relates to the information on your report. And by regularly looking at your credit report, you can raise a dispute with any information that you see that may be incorrect, and you can dispute it and have it corrected. So when you're looking to apply for a loan and to to move forward, that there isn't anything there that's stopping you from moving into that next chapter. By law, an entitled has a right to raise a dispute if you see something that is appears to be incorrect. You can attach any documentation that you might have to the dispute, and you can raise a dispute from within the app. And the law mandates that institutions are to provide a resolution within 7 days. So it is not a case where you're waiting in vain for a response to having something repaired. In 7 days, they are to provide a resolution. No, I must admit there are some occasions where an institution may take a little longer than 7 days to fix certain situations, but we will stay in tune with you in terms of communication. And in events like that, we will also ask the institution to reach out to you directly so that they can bring comfort to the situation and also manage your expectations that we've acknowledged receipt of your dispute and we are working on it. You can expect a response by XYZ timeline. However, the law also states that you can also file a dispute, file a complaint with the regulator, which is the Central Bank of Barbados. Now, just one moment here, if you're downloading the app will take you through a KYC process, essentially an ID verification. You will have to take a photograph of your Barbados ID, and it will also take an image of your face, and that is for security purposes. We need to make sure that the individual applying for the report, there's a national ID card, and your face matches your national ID card, and only when it passes that security check, are you then going to be successfully completing that registration process. So just giving you that little tidbit, that little warning up front that is part of registering on the app. And then lastly, I think a lot of us sometimes may be guilty of this, build an emergency buffer. Don't borrow. Use up all your credit card limit, your line of credit limit, and then an unforeseen circumstance arises and you're unable to pay something on time or pay in full, that you don't have a little slush fund on the side to be able to at least bring a little relief to a bad situation. I know we tend to be in meeting turns and so on and so forth. Take a little bit of the meeting turn and put it on one side and forget about it, so that in the event that times get a little difficult, that you have a little something to lean on to pull you out of a situation where it could be worse if you don't have a little small savings to do so. So on the other side now, where you want to fix a score that is already low, we've simplified it into 4 steps that can allow you to recover. So the first step in terms of fast wins is that any 30+ days due affairs that you have, you need to take a look at them and fix them as quickly as possible. Now, if the score is already low, there may be something more significant in life that has caused the 30 past days due to creep up on you. My advice to you is, if that is the case, you need to reach out to your financial institution and have a discussion. I know Philip will touch on that in a little while, where sometimes we find ourselves in a difficult financial situation. You know, maybe somewhat embarrassed. You don't know how things work. You have difficulties maybe managing money and knowing how to plan and exhibit the necessary practices to bring you out. Is at that stage that you should reach out for some help. And I know my good friends at Public Workers Credit Union, they do have facilities and programs to help you to recover. So I just want to put that tidbit in there. Number 2 is to reduce that utilization on your credit cards or your lines of credit. Bring it down from that 80 and 90% utilization and try to get it down 30%, coming towards 10% to the best of your ability. And then in terms of new contracts, only go for a new contract when it is essential. Don't just take the money just for the sake of taking the money, unless you have a plan maybe in the medium term, the short and medium term, and you're going to use it for that. Look to the future in mind, where you may be looking to change your car in another year. The children are now at that age where university is going to be the next important topic of discussion. And you want to be able to be setting up yourself for the future, not necessarily grabbing at those pre-approvals and quick offers for the now. Because what you do now, if you're not able to maintain it, in the best practice manner, you can hurt your credit score, and in turn, the terms and the limits and the rates and so on that I spoke about a little earlier. So you need to be very strategic when you go for new loans, that it fits into a plan, and you do have a plan, and you understand that if I do this and if I do that, and if I don't pay this and if I don't pay that, that it can put you in a position where it can be a little more difficult, or the terms are not going to be as favorable as you would want them. Stabilizing, month 1 to 2, arrange a payment plan. And again, this will come out to in discussion with your financial advisor if you go that route for the assistance, where they can settle how perhaps consolidation may be something that has to be looked at to create elbow room, because you've gone to the point where it is difficult for you to maintain what you have, but a payment plan and a plan is necessary. Number 2, and we spoke about that a little earlier, automate those payments that you know are going to be the same amount every month, your bills and so on in your app, your installments. In many cases might be salary deductions, but if it is not, try to settle the plan or use the tools to your benefit where you don't miss payment days. Now, for us at Every Data, late is at 6 days. So there's a 5-day buffer that we allow for certain circumstances where you have 2 bank holidays back to back, and the IT department at the bank hasn't been able to run the list to send the installments where they need to go, and you don't want to be penalized for things that may be beyond your control. So we recognize that that is a situation that can arise, and 5 days buffer we allow for a payment to make it to the destination before it is labeled as late. And as I said, number 3, in stabilizing, consolidation might be a direction to go. However, you need to nip a situation that has gone sideways in the bud. Don't wait to 3, 4, 5 months down the line after you've been in a difficult position to now reach out for help, because you will find your credit score or credit report in a situation where it puts your institution in a very difficult position in terms of trying to put together terms, in helping you to recover. So, as I said, consolidation might be the route, but reach out for help as early as possible. Take advantage of any programs in terms of literacy to help you out of a difficult situation, and also to plan to recover so that you can be on the right track. And the other 2 areas now is building momentum and recovery. Maintain good payment streaks. You're paying on time now. You're paying in full. The consolidation loan, you may have been approved, and you're able to fix up those areas of your financial affairs that you were having difficulty, and you started to bring that credit card balance down piece by piece. Close the Amazon app for a little while. I know how that can be, but cut off a bit of the shopping on Shein, just tone it down a little bit and get the credit card balance down, because very often when there's an issue on a person's credit report, they will call the bureau and they will share what they're going through. My roof blew off, or I had a relative in another island that passed away, and I'm trying to get some money, but the credit card too high, and my line of credit maxed out, and I'm finding it difficult and so on. Those things happen, and you need to manage your financial affairs with the understanding that something may come upon you, and you will need some crash cash. And if your credit score is down at 250, it puts that loans officer, that relationship manager, as they say, in a very difficult situation to lend. And then recovery. Continue that spotless payment history, and any negatives, in terms of utilization of that's all. You've picked up new habits now, and even on the side, you're saving a little $25 a week, a little $50 a week as well, creating that slush fund. And over time, every maybe 5 to 6 months, you pay for your paid credit report, and you take a look at your score, and you start to see that gradual increase, a point here, a point there on the increase, so that when you want to get that Honda Vezel, or that property, a piece of land that you've been looking at, your credit report is healthy, and your loans office can approve you with confidence as you move into that next shift or attempt to achieve that next goal in life. So those are the 4 main areas for a score that is already low, these are the tips that will help you to recover. So we just want to speak a bit about